Howdy y'all, and welcome to Political S. A couple of weeks after the November election, we hosted our second virtual town hall entitled Expectations for the Next 4 Years. We asked friends and family from around America questions about what they expected the next 4 years under Joe Biden to look like. The goal was to hear what excited us, worried us, and what gave us hope. This series is to share our answers. I encourage you to listen in and afterwards, down in the comments, share your thoughts. It's the only way that we'll learn. One last thing. If you believe we need to make politics more about us, feel your opinion wasn't represented, or want to see more from this town hall, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. More town halls are coming in the future and we want you to be involved. In our second segment, we focus on those who voted for Trump and look at what parts of daily life could be threatened by the Biden administration. Enjoy! Okay, so we will jump on to the next question. And this one is a little bit more targeted towards the voters for Donald Trump and Mike Pence. With Biden winning, what parts of your way of life do you feel are actually threatened? What are the threatening parts? And again, anybody can answer these questions. I don't necessarily know how everybody here voted. I'll just be honest. I don't know how anybody here voted. But the question really is, with Biden winning, what parts of your way of life do you feel are threatened? I will jump in there. I think with a Biden win, I agree with what Boye just said. I think there's a level of arrogance that kind of takes over, which for a lot of people is hard to swallow. I mean, for those of you that know me, I've ticked off quite a few people in my day and time, and I try to be articulate. I'm not trying to be, tick people off. It just happens. But I think the idea of, I'm a Christian, and now a Democrat is in there and is going to take away my religious freedoms, take away my beliefs. I think there's a lot of fear mongering that's kind of happened before that. And with no Pied Piper there saying I'm going to fight it every step of the way, there's a feeling of lost there. There's a feeling of, not really mattering. I think the other thing I'd kind of throw in there is I think how people felt in 2016, if you voted for Clinton and Trump won. I think in 2016, when you had that feeling of what the hell is wrong with my country, I think there's not 70 million people, but I think there's a large portion of Trump supporters that feel the exact same way. Is that it's my entire way of life is being, taken advantage of.
I think that, what I kind of read, because I did vote for Biden, so for what I read, it's like we're going to be too socialist, we're going to be too leftist, too progressive, it's going to just go the other extreme. Kamala's going to be running the White House, and Biden's not even going to be a factor because she's going to be taking control. And I just feel like, wow, is that what we've really come to, is thinking that just because he picked her as a candidate that could actually stand up to him and maybe provide a different perspective, that she is a threat to his presidency or even unifying the country.
So I'll go.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if necessarily on an individual level who is president necessarily threatens anything one way or the other. Because again, like, I've been president of organizations, and honestly, whether it's, the president of your, like an HOA or like a bowling league or something like that, like I was, is like, I signed a lot of paperwork. Like, I led meetings and signed paperwork, but at the end of the day, my ability to actually influence policy was more on the individual level. I could go and kind of get an idea and influence people, but at the same time, you and I have just as much power about what happens in this country as, say, a president that's elected who ultimately, while they're in a leadership position, the president signs a lot of paperwork and runs a lot of meetings. It's ultimately up to the legislatures, the congressmen and senators, to actually put those laws into action. So while they get the final yay or nay, they still can be overruled by who is in Congress. So in a lot of ways, the Congress people have more power than the actual president. They're more of just like a figurehead and a leadership position. But we all have power. Like, it's not up to say, oh, well, Biden's president or whoever, whatever. It's still up to us to take a stake in our country.
Yeah, no, those are very good points, Mark. I think the idea that, and I said it in one of my previous videos, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out Political Us, make sure you do that. No, one of them was really talking about how, like, we don't elect kings. Like, that's not what we do. And I think sometimes the president is viewed as a king or, at some point a queen. But in reality, that's not even remotely what they do. It is a lot of just, you're the figurehead. You just represent us. And I think an argument that I would both use against both Trump and Obama was this idea that they can do something. Well, if your Congress is deadlocked, you get nothing done. You can say hope and change and you can say build a wall, but at the end of the day, 4 years later, you didn't really do anything. So I agree. I think understanding that Congress plays a much larger role than the presidency, but the president represents the people, right? Like, that's the main thing. It's like, people have got to understand it's a representation of the rest of us. It's who is representing American citizens. And, sometimes they look like you and think the way you do, and sometimes they don't. So if anybody else have any thoughts on how people may feel threatened? If not, we'll move on to the next question.
Chris, I would chime in here a second.
Sure.
I feel that Trump kind of goes on these Twitter rants, and he has this air of freedom of speech, and it empowers the people who really believe in him. And now that he's not there, they probably are going to feel that their speech is threatened. But a lot of times they don't understand that, like, they're like, there's a limitation to what their speech can influence and what their speech is allowed to go to. Their rights end where my rights begin, and a lot of the people, I don't think, understand that, especially when it comes to, like, masks. If Trump comes out and says, hey, let's wear masks, maybe it wouldn't be such a fight out there. But the fact that he stands up there and fights and fights and fights, he just kind of empowers those who listen to him. And they don't have that person, that voice head out there speaking for them. So that's definitely something that his voters, his followers, are going to lose.
Yeah, David, that's an excellent point. I mean, I see, I don't know if you can see everybody else, but I see a lot of head nodding with that. And I think that's a big part of it. I agree. The Pied Piper is no longer going to be in control, so who represents us? I do want to jump in real quick before we move on to another question. And I want to make clear that everybody here knows I did everything in my power to try to get people that I kind of felt voted for Trump to be in this conversation. So much so that, yes, this is not just coffee. But it's a challenge, and I think that's one thing. Again, like I said, I don't know how everybody here voted, and that's fine. But I will just personally say, I know that's the struggle that I always run into, is getting people that super believe something to engage in a conversation about it. It's very much, this is what I believe. And at the end of the day, if you don't believe that, I'm being made fun of. Well, you're not. Like, we're just asking questions. So if this feels like a one-sided conversation, it only is because people didn't join. This invite went out to, I know, the 300-400 people that I know, and I know a handful of others sent some stuff out. So there were 70 million voters, so some of them had to be in that number. But all right, Boy, I saw you on mute. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, just adding on to David's kind of comment, I don't know if Trump loses executive power come January 20th, but I don't think we're going to lose his influence. I mean, that's been a big part of this conversation over the last week and a half about his Twitter rants and about the people who are still willing to follow blindly with him. So, I mean, how long he's able to sustain that is, I think, is a question that will get answered down the road. But he's had a way of just keeping people riled up, and that's why we're not seeing a lot of the Republican congressmen or congresswomen and senators just doing with the wayside with him, because he still has a lot of strength, even though his days are numbered.
With Biden winning, what parts of your way of life do you feel are threatened? Now, Kara, I'm going to steal some of your answer and maybe push you down the path a little bit, but you talked the economy. So expand on that a little bit.
Well, I guess there's part of me that thinks if you look at our world, our lives personally in the last year, it wouldn't have mattered who was sitting in the White House. COVID happened and jobs were lost and things, but I would love to not be taxed and taxed and taxed again. I mean, that's the worry I have, and I know our taxes were a little bit higher when President Obama was in, and they did go down some. But at the same time, I'm looking at it like, but what have we given up for it? You know, I mean, taxes pay for valuable things, and sometimes taxes pay for crap. You know, so I grew up in a good Republican household. And when I first started voting when I was 18, my mom was like, you just go in there and you just press all Republican. That's all you have to do. And so when I was 18, that's what I did. And then after that, I thought, you know, that doesn't seem like a really wise thing to do. So, I mean, all my life I heard, don't give away the store. So I'm also wanting a new narrative. I would like to have a different way to look at things.
Okay, can I comment on that?
Please do.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know. I don't have the answers. But part of me thinks, okay, if our president had have taken this COVID seriously,
maybe we wouldn't.
And moved on it quickly, would we be where we are right now? If we had of in the very beginning, and to be honest, I guess in the very beginning I had my head in the sand, because I went to work one day and they were saying we're shutting it down on Friday. But then I have heard, you know, through social media and television and radio, when it starts all the argument, well, if he had have taken it serious, and I don't know, maybe that's an answer somebody here can answer. Did he not take it serious? Did he do everything we could do so millions of people wouldn't die and be sick, you know?
Well, let me bring it back, right? Because this is about the topic, right? So the topic is, no, it's okay. It's okay. Like, and to be fair, Mom, this is an example of what I'm talking about, like sort of in these conversations, right? To keep it compacted, because COVID we're going to get to in a little bit.
Okay.
But really the question is, you know, and anybody can answer this, or if not, I'll expand on my thoughts a little bit. But with now that Biden has won, one of the big things that at least I hear both, you know, listening to other people and in my daily march of arguing with folks, is that there's an overwhelming fear of, you know, well, and Kara, I'm going to kind of expand on your, you know, well, the economy is going to collapse. I'm concerned with, you know, America's going to be weak. I'm going to, you know, my beliefs, you know, my religious beliefs are going to be threatened now. God's going to come off the money, right? Like those are the things where it's like, okay, if you voted for Trump, if you voted for Trump or Biden winning, like what are the things that we as Americans need to understand? People who voted for Trump maybe truly do fear, you know, and I would wholeheartedly agree that to me, the economy seems to be like the number one thing. And it's not even the economy, Kara. I think you nailed it when it was like, I want to know about my taxes, right? It's not about the economy. It's about my economy. Like, what does that do to the dollars in my pocket? Kevin, Dad, Brian, I don't know if you guys have anything else, you know, that you guys want to kind of chime in there. If not, you don't have to participate. Being on the call is participation enough.
Well, I was going to say, you said we'll talk about COVID, but in our house, COVID has been the economy. COVID directly affected our economy. in our house. I mean, there is no separating COVID and the economy in this household because of the fact that jobs have been lost and not gained, just like y'all. I mean, goodness, so anyway, but that, so yeah, so you're right. It's not all black and white, but you want to keep it into a, what could change here. But that's what I think is for us. That's what I'm more interested. But if our lives are better or worse, it's not because of whoever's sitting in the White House.
Very nicely said. I would agree with that.
That's it for this segment. If you like the conversation, make sure to hit that like button and let us know you enjoyed the content. Leave a comment if you have more to add, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thanks for watching and helping to make politics more about us.